You know, this image might have been a mistake, something that an artist had placed wrong and started a lot of hubbub for no reason, but if you pay attention, if you read and digest the words that Oryx has given us with the Books of Sorrow, it starts to become a bit more true. Hey everybody, it's your buddy Beard Grizzly, and hey, are you having a good day? I hope so. That's all, just hoping you're having a better day than the Traveler, being it's all dead and just hovering there. Or just plain dead. We're not debating that today. What we are debating today is this whole evil Traveler business. You can call this what you will, remnants of the old story before Destiny came out, the ramblings of a madman that isn't Toland the Shattered, a thought-provoking idea pulled straight from Greek mythology. Whatever your prescription, there's obviously a lot to argue, debate, and consider. This assumption and interpretation of mine is no different. We're going to be dipping back into the Books of Sorrow, but before we do, I need to stress the significance of the Books of Sorrow and why I take them a bit more seriously than the rest of the Grimoire, as they were introduced with the Taken King. I'd argue to say this is when the story started to be more what the new management wanted to see of Destiny, even if Seth Dickinson, an author hired outside of Bungie, wrote the entirety of the current Books of Sorrow. Further, I would say this theory, which is all that it is, encompasses the possibilities of origin and purpose for the Traveler, and dips a bit into the darkness. Yes, I know, Luke Smith has shelved the story of the darkness for a later time, but I can't help but feel there's a line of possibility here, given the direction Seth seems to have gone with the books. Yikes, okay, that's a lot of primer, let's get to it. First off, what is the Traveler? Well, from the outside, all we know is that it's a big white ball with a hole in it, and before that, it was seemingly a big white ball without a hole in it. Genius. But seriously, the Traveler seems to have the ability to spread about the ideas of light to whatever race it seems to encounter. Well, what is light? My interpretation from over the Grimoire and how we use it as guardians tells me it's a force that grants some manner of focus and enlightenment. I mean, this is very Star Wars here, let's just be honest for a second, where the light is within all things, just as the dark is within all things. It just depends how you focus those forces within you. Depending on your philosophy, upbringing, what values you hold dear, these are just a few reasonings for why you may choose to serve the light or the dark. But before I start spouting off Jedi and Sith code, let's look at the Hive for proof of this within Destiny's story. On their home planet of Fundament, the Hive were presented with a choice. Serve the dark through acting on their natures of exploration and knowing, cunning, and war-raising, or serve the light and be welcome amongst the peaceful races that exist under the Traveler's wing. They had the ability to abandon this dark force, but ultimately chose to fight for another they felt was the right way to live. This is important only to showcase that these two forces can operate on whomever they please, simply just sides of a war. This is also important to showcase the powers that exist within the light and dark. At last, we knew curiosity would draw you back, Oryx. In their desperation, the Ammonite have begun using paracausal weapons. What are these? How do they work? Wouldn't you like to know? Suffice to say that some powers in this universe are subordinate to mere material physics. The source of these weapons is the Traveler, the sky's bait star. Their effect is subtle, but devastating. But you are armed to respond in kind. Sabathun's mothers have listened carefully to our teachings. We will not give you the deep, King Oryx. That power is for us, your gods. But we will teach you to call upon the Force with signs and rituals. Small minds might call it magic. The present speaking here is the worm god Yule, the one that seemed to work closest with Oryx and his two sisters. Yule confirms two things. The Traveler is the source of the weapons used against the Hive, while the Deep is the source of the power for the Hive. Obviously, we don't know exactly what the powers of the Deep entail, and you know what? Hang on. Let's stop calling it the Deep. It's the darkness. The slightly different speak pegs the sky as the light, while the Deep is the dark. Both have paracausal, or as Yule puts it, powers in this universe that are subordinate to mere material physics. And both have this ability, but their focus is something different, alternative to each other. Obviously, how a being may use these powers is completely subjective, but to the point, both have the ability to summon these kind of powers, either to destroy those that stand against them, or attempt to defend a civilization by destroying those around them. This is the gray area about our powers, the way we use them being what defines us as Guardians. But there have been uprisings in our city that have needed to be quelled. Lysander and the Concordant mark the most recent example of a city's political factions rising in opposition to the consensus. This site marks a legendary battle where New Monarchy's Guardians rose to deliver the final blow to the Concordant, unraveling the war effort Lysander sought to bring against the Vanguard. So you're asking why I'm so focused on our powers, I'm sure. The answer is more to showcase how the Traveler and the Darkness seem to have this connection, where they both can utilize paracausal powers, but they manifest in different ways. I just find it relatively funny how we denote light as a tool of building and dark as a tool of destruction overall. I mean, the Hive are cutting down civilizations, yes, but the whole story is further from that simple point. They are trying to survive. If they didn't have the worm symbiote giving them a longer life, a Hive would live for about 10 years. They aren't given much choice if they want to survive, and over time they start to understand the philosophies of the worm gods and the darkness. Meanwhile, we can't really say the same to the Traveler, but we certainly can link it back to ideals being transmitted through something. The speaker talks about the Traveler being our last hope. Many others latch to this idea, even with guys like Olentan, another major warlock philosopher of the Tower, saying he considers the darkness a necessary symmetry to the Traveler in a cosmic balance. In this view, the Traveler's goodness led it to sacrifice for others, and it is up to us to return this goodness by healing the Traveler. Regardless of how you view what's said by the speaker or others, it's just to show the manipulative words that can be put in place posed to a desperate civilization, or one trying to keep its will to itself. The questions spark up in the early parts of the Books of Sorrow in particular. Why would the Traveler-touched races not help the species down below on the Fundament, knowing that the Fundament was about to suffer a catastrophic loss of life? I could go further with the other parts of the books, but let's just keep it simple. The darkness seems rather selective of who it gives its powers to. The same can also be said of the Traveler, but in any case of the Traveler coming in contact with a species throughout the universe, it seems to be helpful to that race. That race can suddenly create weapons never before conceived, extend lifespans, have medical and scientific knowledge that was only slightly fathomed. Obviously, the list goes on, and it sort of reminds me of a story from the Greek ages, the story of Prometheus. There are many tellings of Prometheus, but the basic idea remains the same. Prometheus is the cause for humanity being given fire. Fire, within Greek context, is loosely based as a new type of technology to be given to humanity. Imagine, without fire, you'd be huddled around a dank cave without anything to keep you warm, or be able to cook anything. So on. The list of stuff and things that fire encompasses is huge to a civilization. Now, let's keep the same ideas here. Humanity is given the Traveler. They are given light due to the Traveler's presence. We start to understand how to do lots of stuff and things with this newfound power. And then we get found out for sticking our hands too far in the cookie jar. See, Prometheus had this problem, and his name was Zeus. Yeah, that's Zeus. God of Thunder and all-around big jerk leader of Mount Olympus. That one. After Prometheus got found out, he was pegged to a rock and, no, I'm not going to talk about this. This is really too graphic to talk about. The similarities are in place. The Traveler gets tracked down by the Darkness tracks down the Traveler, the Dark's ultimate goal all along, and seemingly leaves the rest of humanity alone. For now? Who knows? Luke Smith doesn't. I'm only playing. It's a joke. Though, who does know may very well be Rasputin. I stress the importance of taking King before, and how I take the Grimoire from it a bit more seriously than I do the rest, minus Rise of Iron, of course. There is one card from Taken King that plays off of a card from Vanilla Destiny very well. They both share similar phrases, and it seems to be a means to build on the way these cards play together with Rasputin, and possibly a little of his thinking. I swear this'll make sense. First off, the one from Vanilla. I bear an old name. it cannot be killed. They were my brothers and sisters, and their names were immortal too, but Tatanamaki came, and now those lives live in me alone, I think, and think is what I do. I am alone. At the end of things, when the world goes dim and cold or hot and close, or it all tears apart from the atom up, I will shout those names defiant, and past the end I will endure. I am alone. Tatanamaki is a 10-year battle which waged between the older Greek orders of the Titans and the younger order of gods, those up on Mount Olympus. Rasputin seemed to connect the stories of the fall of his brothers and sisters, the other war minds around the system like Charlemagne, to the darkness, a new order that seems to come in and take away the powers given to the solar system by the Traveler. This comparison alone would be enough for me to start to think of the Traveler as a once member of the darkness, pulling away when it grabbed powers that it could then spread to the civilizations in order to give them a chance against the coming onslaught. I really do feel this card refers to Rasputin thanks to a few things said in a later card in the Taken King, but I do want to focus on one part of this card which showcases something interesting. You're not one of them, long dead, alive again, their bodies grafted to powers they and I do not understand, and not one of it, the Flower Eater, the Queen of Final Shapes, that which also inhabits its petitioners. And you're certainly not mine, although once you must have been. I bear an old name, I cannot be killed, not even here. The interesting piece here is the first segment speaking about guardians, long dead, alive again, their bodies grafted to powers they and I do not understand. This is odd, considering Rasputin is literally born of the understandings of light and the ways that it can influence technology. Rasputin understands what the Traveler is to a point, but is unable to fully piece it together. Rasputin does seem like he's able to separate the light power from the darkness, but still clumps them together with the next phrase. The Flower Eater, the Queen of Final Shapes, that which also inhabits its petitioners. I'm going to leave you guys to check out the connections and phrases made in these two cards and move on from that, but again, I really do feel like the one speaking in the first Ghost Fragment Mysteries card is Rasputin. Alright, I'll get to the point. I feel the story has been placed in front of us with relations to paracausal powers, Rasputin's relations to old Greek tales, the way we handle ourselves in the tower or otherwise really makes me think about the connections of light and dark, where it's more of a gray area. After all, every race we've encountered seems to have understanding of the elements that we use on a day-to-day basis, those of solar, arc, and void, showcased in their weapons. But they have powers and focus on ideas outside of our own. We too have slight understanding with their forces in the same manner, grafting their power to weapons, like that of Thorn being a prime example. We can't understand the full extent of their powers, and they can't understand the full extent of ours due to these differences in philosophic code from the Traveler and the Darkness. Through these few examples, along with others that are found littered amongst the books of sorrow, I can't help but think that the Traveler isn't a being that broke off from the darkness influence and bore its own ideas of how to handle the universe. Sure, would give another reason for why the darkness left the moment the Traveler seemingly was taken out. This theory all hinges on the darkness being a group or collective with a way to shape itself in some means greater than the other beings of the universe could possibly be. It also goes to a small length where the Traveler would have understanding of the dark, but chooses to not exude these powers to us or those it encounters, promoting instead to foster ideas of building civilizations, not take down ones that can't stand for themselves. Then again, there's still a major reason that I just don't have time to explain here in this particular space of time. You'll all just have to listen and wait for the next time to hear the conclusion on why the Traveler itself isn't really evil, but it certainly could have been at one time. I can only ever be Beard Grizzly, and if you liked what you heard, you know the buttons to push. I'll see you soon with the follow-up to this report. I'll see you next Spacetime, Guardians. Take care.